Welcome to episode 779 of I Am Talk, your weekly fix in all things Iron Man. Rightio team, welcome along to episode 779 of I Am Talk with Coach John Newsom, Bevan James. You got your I Am Talk warm jersey on.
I have today. It's pretty fresh out there. Pretty fresh.
It's a nice top, that one.
Thank you.
I never wear mine. I think it was a little bit small. I think I got the slightly wrong size.
So it's a black hoodie. I Am Talk. You can get all our gear via the website, iamtalk.me, and it'll take you through to the World Triathlon store.
There you go. Jumbo, it's a bit cold this morning again.
It is. And you've been out, and your wallet's a little lighter than it was this morning. Well,
No,
maybe not.
I had a lawyer at the meeting at the lawyer to sign a piece of paper, which probably cost $1,000, but it's actually because our neighbours have made a cock up and they've got to pay for it.
That's
So
right.
I don't mind. I actually took some time and spoke to the lawyer.
Yeah.
Because they charge them 7-minute blocks, isn't it? Yeah. So they're probably, I spoke for like half an hour.
Yeah.
Told them my life story. Had a cup of coffee.
Good.
And went all out. I'm Talk is proudly brought to you by.
Our patrons.
I thought we were going to say Profile Design.
Oh, we're sort of later on, but the Profile Design, one of our sponsors, we've got some news coming on about our patrons program later on.
Now, I'm going to give you a bit of crap here, because before I pushed record, I said, do we say it at the start? And you said yes.
Yeah, the start of the interview.
Oh, it's full of crap.
Communication.
And our patrons. Patrons, you go first, John.
David, Sweet Justice, Sobel.
We've got Connor, Sensational Sanders.
And Adam, Crazy Legs Fox.
Okay, on this week's show, we've got some news. Hot topic of the week, we've got an interview. Profile Design, apparently.
Yeah, brought to you by Profile Design with Michael Baker, who is going to talk around some ins and outs of getting speedy on the bike. He's a bike fitter and just aero bar position. And the reason I sort of wanted to bring this up was a lot of you guys will be watching Tour de France, which is on at the moment, and they've had the first time trial. The second time trial is coming up in a few days' time, and the setups on their rigs these days are quite a bit different to what we've seen in...
Oh, really?
Well, if you see it, Bevan, you probably haven't, but they're stacked really, really high. It looks dangerous.
Wait, so they're up high in the aero position?
The aero bar, the handlebars, or the base bar is really low.
Yeah.
And then they stack up, so the aero bars are in the same position they always used to. It's more that the base bar is a lot lower, and it looks weird.
So I kind of think like early 80s. Remember when the first aero bars and they had the big loopy ones?
Yeah.
Kind of low.
Really low. Yeah.
Okay. We got Coach's Corner.
Yes, we're going to do this, and some people think that this is going to be a bit of I know all this stuff, but in my experience, they don't. It's just around bunch riding and some basics, because I've been doing a few bunch rides lately, and I've done a lot on camps in the past. People think they do the basics, but they don't.
Didn't we do this?
No.
Okay, good. Wanger of the Week, questions and answers at the end. Jumbo, just on the Tour de France, your thoughts?
It's good. It's a good tour, but it's a bit boring when the front guy is so much better than everybody else. But the race for second's fantastic. It's kind of like an Ironman when you've got Chrissy there, or you had Alistair Brownlee in his heyday. It's like, well, they're going to win, but the race for second's quite interesting.
So why is he so much better?
He's just is. He's just a class above at the moment. So unbeatable, pretty much.
Who is it?
Tadej Pogačar.
And has it won it before?
He won it last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's just the man.
And he's young, and he's just young, and just who knows how long he's going to dominate for.
Do you start to think drugs?
Well, everyone says that, but they say that about all the cyclists. So, no, he showed what he could do last year and just looks incredibly talented. So the
story is Cavendish, isn't it?
Yeah, that definitely is a big story.
That's like I know, I'm not a big follower of the Tour, but I did know that he didn't have a team. He was suffering depression. They brought him back, and he's won 4 stages, isn't he? And
he wasn't even going to be riding up until about a month ago. So, no, that is very impressive.
So he's got one.
If only I had him on my team early in the Tour.
Oh, because that would have been a great pick, wouldn't it?
And Thomas made that pick.
Oh, so Thomas is beating.
Thomas is winning our league. He's smoking it. Yeah.
Okay, we've got not much on the way of results. We did have one little race.
We had a 70.3 in Ecuador. That was about the only race I could see at the weekend, so it's a pretty quiet time. Not much coming up this weekend. Jackson Laundry took that out in 3:52, and on the female side, Sarah Crowley took out their race. And that was it for the weekend.
Okay, well, other news, there is going to be changes to the Legacy program. So for 10 years, Ironman Legacy program has provided a pathway for Ironman World Triathlete Championship athletes to go to the race. It was created to honour the most dedicated and loyal athletes. The Legacy pathway has traditionally become available to an athlete after they completed 12 Ironman full distance races. After years of the Legacy program has grown in popularity and demand, and the waitlist has implemented to progress athletes into the Ironman World Championship. Basically, what has come up with is that it's too popular.
It is. The wait list ends up being too long and
people are going to have to wait forever to get in there. So they've changed it. As a result, in 2024, the Legacy program qualification process will change, requiring athletes to complete 10 full-distance Ironman branded triathlon finishes, and their athletes...
12.
I said 12, didn't I?
No, you said 10.
Oh, sorry, 12. And their athletes' participation history must span 12 or more years. 2 of the 12 full-distance triathlon finishes, 1 each year, must occur in the most recent 2 years before application. The change will be implemented as of 2024 Legacy Program acceptance year. Applications will open in November 2023, allowing those on the cusp of qualifying under the existing policy to do so in time. So...
Interesting. Very interesting. So it's really trying to eliminate those that really stack in, 3 Ironmans a year, and in theory you could, basically be ready for a Legacy spot within 4 years' time.
We could be even faster. Some people will probably. I imagine people have done in 2 years.
6. That might be a stretch. I'm sure there's a few examples.
Sure there are
of that.
some examples.
Yeah. But there's plenty of people that would be doing 3 a year, and a good number, I'd say, be doing 2 a year. So my feeling is, I kind of should have had this in from the outset, is my feeling is 12 is 2 too many. I think 10's a nice number. You say 10 in 10 years and you're sorted. So they're saying 12 in 12 years. So you after 2024, you've got to be in this game for quite some time, which I think is a good thing.
Well, yes and no.
I prefer not to say, and you play by the rules. I always say that. If you're somebody's out there at the moment doing 6 a year for 2 years, I've got no problem with that. Yep. That's what the rules state. I just think the rules were initially, in my opinion,
bit too lenient.
And Legacy implies somebody who's been trying for ages and ages and ages, and we all know people that have been like that. And so I think 10 years of in the sport, I think that warrants it. 12, maybe just a couple of years too long.
Well, interestingly, so. The Legacy was, and I actually think we take credit for the Legacy.
We do. I still cannot believe that it was broadcast first anywhere in the world on our podcast in Hawaii.
But also I think the idea came from us.
Right.
Yeah, but I really do, because back in those days, we was something we talked about on the show for a lot, and then suddenly out of nowhere it came up and they announced it on this podcast. So it's our Legacy is the Legacy.
There you go.
But more importantly, it's what do you want to reward? And traditionally, I think they rewarded people who invested in the sport, and I get it. And in some ways, I didn't dislike what they'd done with the Legacy originally. I get that's a problem because just too many people are getting involved with it. But not everyone can do 10 years, 12 years in the sport, And for a lot of people, that dream of Kona is still a big thing. And if
why can't they do 10 years in sport?
It's a big commitment to your life. Like for me, I did Ironman. I started 2002 I did 6 years.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to qualify. Now, I only did maybe 7. No, I did 8 Ironmans, I think, but a lot of them, I did 3 or 4 challenge. For a lot of people, 12 years is a massive commitment.
But that's what Legacy is all about.
Yeah, and I get it. But then I also like the fact that some people, for me, I did 6 years in the sport. Great 6 years of my life. If going to Kona was a goal and that was, it's what do you want to reward? And I get it. I do get that, it's rewarding people who've stayed in the game the longest. But then I also think it was quite nice when people who couldn't stay in the game for a long period, because let's be honest, Ironman's a demanding sport.
No doubt about
and
it.
for a lot of people to do 12 Ironman over a 12-year period is a pretty big commitment.
Could be 12 over a 20-year period.
Yeah, well, that is the thing. And I do actually like your idea of 10. I think that's probably a better number. And maybe if we move forward, if they get less people in the Legacy, I get it. They had to come up with a solution. Do you know what the general feel in the public is?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm sure the vocal people will be bitching and moaning as everybody. No, everybody's a good moan. But I think
the only thing I would say, which I don't like about this, is why do you have to do two in the two latest years?
Yeah, of course.
You know, I don't like that.
Yeah,
make it the latest year. You know, I get it that you want them to have done an Ironman recently, but I don't know why you know. So of this one here, so the rule is you got to do 12 Ironman over 12 years, but you have to do 2 in the last 2 years into the year you apply it. Make it one.
And I haven't looked at the fine print as to whether or not you've got to keep doing Ironmans then until your time comes up.
Well, I don't think that's the case then based on this. Because remember when it was like that, wasn't it? You had to keep doing it every year.
Keep validating, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's not the case so much now, but maybe just make it the latest year. But something had to happen because obviously there's a problem. Nothing significant is happening this weekend. Well, that's not true because we have got Frodeno versus Sanders, thetrybattle.com.
As we record, there is 5 days, 9 hours and 27 minutes to go until this race in Algar in Germany. So it's on Sunday at 9 a.m. their time. Obviously they're doing the Ironman distance, 3.8k swim, 180k bike, 42k run. The course they've got there sounds firstly really scenic, secondly really fast. So swim's the swim, but then the bike is going to be on what sounds like very smooth, fast roads and with minimal turns. So the bike leg is in the heart of the Tri Battle Royale. After they've completed the swim, they'll switch to their time trial bikes on the shores of the lake. The first kilometres lead through the mountain town and then straight into the fast and smooth B19. It's a fully closed 5-lap course and it's as straight as a runway with extra wide turnarounds for maximum speeds, and it's shielded from the wind by the alpine terrain. So they're going to hammer it through the Algar Valley and then they get off on and to do the run, and the run takes place on a 10.55 kilometre run course around the mountain town of Bergberg. As with the first two disciplines, there will be no pacemaking except for the pain Jan and Lionel will inflict on one another, and it's pretty much a flat straight line run as well. So fast course. One of the things I've been saying a lot about is kind of depends what the weather conditions are like. You know, in Europe at the moment, you know, we're seeing some of the stages of Tour de France being super hot, and when I looked up the weather for Algar in this area, it looks pretty miserable this week. And it's certainly not going to be hot if the forecast that I looked at was anything to go by. It was sort of 19 to 20 degrees each day with rain most days, it's rain and showers. So if it is like that on the day, you'd think they could go particularly fast. Obviously, you don't want much rain on the bike, but if it's cool and the odd bit of drizzle, it's going to be nice to keep the heart rate down, and likewise going to mean very quick swim conditions, run conditions.
So interesting point, just looking at the website, John. Frodeno is a racing sardine. So he's 193. Now, weights are kind of come and go, but they're saying he's 75 kg. Now, I'm a skinny runt. You know, like, you know, I'm 12 centimeters smaller than him, and I weigh 4 kg more.
Yeah. No, he's a lean, mean machine.
He is a lean, mean machine. And Sanders is shorter than I am, and he weighs 73. So Lionel Sanders is only 2 kgs lighter than Frodeno, but he's nearly 18 centimetres smaller.
Crazy.
It is interesting when you think of it. Now, one thing that they've got in rankings here, they've got the swim, bike, run rankings, and they're only giving a Frodeno a 4 out of 5 for a swim. He's a great swimmer, isn't he?
He's led the swim out and kind of always been in the front. So I suppose a 5 out of 5 would be someone who's...
But he's led the swim out of Kona.
True, but these days, because it's hard to qualify for Kona, you don't get those ex-gun swimmers who might be donkeys on the bike in the run. So I'd say he'd probably be a 4.5 in the swim. He is.
But you'd say in the sport he's a 5 out of 5.
Yep. I would.
You know, like if you come out of the water first, you get a 5.
Yeah.
And that's a bit bizarre. They give Frodeno a 5 and Sanders a 4.
A 3 in the swim.
Oh, sorry, 3. Sorry,
that's generous.
Yeah.
Not being nasty, that's generous.
We'll talk a little bit more deeper about this because it was the discussion of the week, so we'll go a bit deeper into that when we get into the discussion of the week. Any other events are coming up?
There is one that I'm not sure that we've mentioned before. It's the Tri-Verest in Switzerland. There's also on this weekend the Ultraman in the Pyrenees, which will be a tough one, the Wildman Off-Road, and the Ironborn in Eastbourne in the UK. And we may have talked about this before. I've sometimes got a pretty short memory, but this one in Switzerland, they basically do an Everest race. So you do the swim. Obviously, you're not gaining much elevation in the swim, but you bike. Well, the total distance is 300 kilometres. The bike is 260 kilometres and a crazy amount of climbing. You go over 7 mountain passes, and then on the run, you run up Pilatus, which is this famous Swiss mountain, and then I think you get the cable car down. And in total, you're basically doing the equivalent of Everest, the elevation change. So it's a lot of climbing.
Did you see on the news? I didn't actually see. I think it was on like 7 Sharp last night. There's a guy in New Zealand who I think, now I only saw the 2-second clip coming up, who's doing the Everest run.
Yeah, on Baldwin Street, is it? But Baldwin Street's the steepest road in the world.
Yeah.
It got dethroned.
No, it didn't.
For a short period, and then it's been then it got
because basically the road
rethroned.
that took it was basically there's a bend in the road.
So it's a very steep road. So he's going up and down doing Everesting
on that road.
That would be tough on your calves. But where this race finishes, Pilatus is 8,848 metres in elevation gained over about 290 to 300 kilometres. And where they finish is this really cool sort of place on top of a mountain. It looks like something out of James Bond to me. So it looks awesome. You can do it as a team. You can do it as an individual. It's a long way.
It's a long way.
I saw the winner's time from last year or the year before was like 17 hours. Didn't look like there was that many people that did it. Surprisingly.
John's OT update. Some more money, John.
There is. So this is great in the current times when you hear about more money being put in the sport. So for 2022, the World Triathlon has approved increasing their bonus prize pool money from $750,000 to $1 million, which is great. So they're really try to push people to do their series, and they're successful in doing that. And there's a big bonus, a bit like what we see now with the PTO. If you get the highest ranked athlete, then you can do pretty well out of this. And they've still got $750,000 available for this year, even though it's a significantly reduced number of races in the series.
When's the Olympics? How many days is it now?
Well, the mixed relay's on the 31st, and so the individual race must be on about five days before that. So maybe the 26th. I think
about 3 weeks.
Yeah,
good stuff. Exciting times. Okay, let's go into discussion of the week. So before we were talking about how Frodeno and Sanders are going to be racing each other this weekend. So it's going to do, the question was, what are your predicted times for Jan Frodeno and Lionel Sanders for the Zwift Tri Battle Royale? John Weir, this is a crack up. He's going, what are the details? Is it virtual? I'm betting it doesn't even happen. John, get with the times, mate.
Neil Hastings, anyone would think this was the second coming of Dave Scott and Mark Allen. Lionel Sanders doesn't even finish in the top 10 in Kona. Frodo wins. How are these two even rivals? A rivalry built on social media followers. Welcome to 2021.
He's right, but he's wrong.
He's wrong.
Because Sanders got second in Kona.
And he's had some good Ironman races, a couple. He's nowhere near in the league as Frodo at the full distance, so I think we all agree on that. Half Ironman, he's still not in the same league, but he's one of the best of the rest. Yep,
he is. Mick Simpson's got not sure of the time, but this, to me, is like West Ham challenging Man City to a game. Yet West Ham are one of the best of the rest, but the difference in class is massive.
Agreed. Joseph Mulhall says it's an exhibition match. 7 hours 51 for I assume he means that for Frodo, and 7:55 for Sanders.
Andreas Wolf has got, I'm sure Jan will find a way to make it look like a battle. Do you think he will? Do you think he just wants to dominate him? Let's talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Mika Persol, it is so ridiculous. Even if Lionel Sanders is a real game changer, it will be a cool cat and an angry mouse play. But the cat is a tiger, in fact, and the mouse will still be a mouse at the end.
Good old Edwards Evans has got, that would depend on the bus timetable for a certain someone to finish the run.
That's a bit nasty. Edward Evans, that would.
That's the one I just did.
You just did that one. Sorry,
Yep.
I had to put my comments up because no one was even putting times down. The question was, what times are they going to do?
John got angry. I'll read John Newsom. As most of you not putting actual times predictions here, this is what I think. Assuming this is not really a hot day, and assuming they're actually pushing for a record time, Frodeno swims 45, bikes 4:10, runs 2:35. 2 minutes for transitions, 7:32. Maybe a couple of minutes quicker on the bike and the run. So best case would be 7:27. Sanders, let's assume he gets it right. Swim 50, 4:10, runs 2:40, transitions. So he's going to do a 7:42. So you reckon it's going to be about a 18-minute advantage.
Something like that in that region.
What's the
Maybe not
prize?
quite that much. Sorry?
What's the prize?
No prize.
What's the point? Well, they're not going to go hard.
Well, that's the conundrum. Who knows what the hell they're going to do.
If they said if you get under 7:30, you get $1 million.
Yeah. The only motivation is to set the fastest ever iron distance time, which isn't really going to be ratified. So I'm with you. I think.
What's the motivation? I don't get it.
Well, I think for Frodo, he needs a race at this time of the year. Traditionally, does Roth or Ironman Germany. He's qualified. Doesn't need to do that, and plus, he just doesn't need to do it. So for him, it's a hard training day. Whether or not it's going to be a very hard maximum effort training day is what I'm intrigued about. But I agree. What's the motivation to do it? To do that?
So there's no incentive.
It does not appear that way to me. The only incentive, the incentive is all with Lionel Sanders to see how close he can get to young
But he doesn't have
Frodeno.
incentive now because he doesn't want to blow himself up. Because if he blows himself up and doesn't get to Kona, he looks like a right fool.
Well, his incentive is he just wants to try to beat Frodeno and try to figure out iron distance racing, which he's struggled to do of late. So I agree. It's a weird one, but I'm intrigued to see how it goes. It'll be some good coverage for people to go and watch on Zwift, and apparently you can ride along on Zwift at the same time that they're racing, so they must have some sort of link up you can do at the same time. So
Okay,
I'm intrigued to see what
You've
goes
got tickets
down.
to go watch it.
Well, probably because they don't want, in Germany, I'm not sure what the restrictions are like. They're probably a limited number of people they want actually going to the venue to watch it, so it's probably a closed off area.
I don't know, and they're not cheap. So, for example,
Well, there's probably perks you probably get to.
okay, so for €100,
Yep.
you get
A lunch and a beer.
The Stadium Bergen opens from 8:30 to 6 p.m. Unique atmosphere, close to the transitions. Tri-battle, big LED screen, first class catering and food.
There you go.
There you go.
It's all right for €100.
I mean, let's be honest, we'd eat a lot. And then the
Bugger
VIPs
race,
are
I'd just be going to the
125.
buffet all day.
I wonder. Okay, I'm kind of curious. Where's the money in this?
Well, they'll be getting paid some money from Zwift, so there'll be some appearance fees and things like that.
Yep.
So,
And it will be big on Zwift, I imagine.
yeah.
Yeah.
So back to the actual question that we had here. What time are they going to go? So I put down, what did I put down? I put down 45-minute swim. And when I actually have a look at, this is for Frodeno, when I look through his past swims at Challenge Roth, he swam 45. In Austria, he swam a 46.
You're saying Leonard Sanders is going to do 50 for a swim. I'm saying 55.
Okay, let's have a quick look at Sanders.
No, but he hasn't got a pack.
Yes, I agree. But that's sometimes an advantage. It is, because you're not getting the shit beaten out of you.
No, because I was a shit swimmer. I always swam better in an Ironman.
Yeah, but you're not
'Cause you
Lionel
worked the pack.
Sanders. Let's have a look.
Oh, come on.
He swam 52 in Hawaii. That's
With a
decent.
pack.
Yeah, 53 when he's done. Where is the other Ironman? I'm in Arizona, 51. What other swims he done? I'm in Arizona is 53. I think he's getting a little bit better than that.
I'm saying
there.
55.
Okay, I was trying to be nice to him.
Hey.
God, everyone's bagging poor old Lionel.
I'm not begging him. I'm being factual. I think without a pack, he's a 55-minute swimmer.
Okay.
But he has got better recently, so prove me wrong, Lionel.
And I've said 4:10 on the bike for both of them. I think they're fairly comparable. It just kind of depends whether Lionel Sanders tries to go nuts on the bike. And then a 2:30.
He has to, doesn't he?
He has to, yeah. And then a 2:35 for Frodo on the run, and a 2:40 for Lionel with an asterisk probably next to it.
Why is it?
Well,
'Cause
he hasn't run very well lately, so I think that's probably a best case scenario. So, yeah.
Do you agree that it is just a social media rivalry?
Well, I think my thoughts are it's a training day for Frodo, and Sanders, it's a dick measuring day to see if he can actually beat him.
Do they get the dicks out?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, the press conference.
Like the last leg, the fourth leg of the triathlon.
Yeah.
Whip your pants down, boys.
So 10 minutes, I've put down 10 minutes.
I had a question there which I can't ask.
Yeah, that's why I'm moving on. I'd say 10 minutes at best is the difference if they both go for it.
Okay, here's my prediction. Jan will go 7:48, 7:46,
Okay.
and Sanders will do 7:53, 7:57. I don't think they're going to go for it.
I tend to agree with you.
I think they have good solid days, but where's the motivation? You know, I don't think Frodeno's that motivated by Sanders up his bum, and then I think Sanders is motivated, but I think Sanders also in the back of mind goes, shit, I can't
But
kill
we're
myself
not
too much.
bloody champion athletes, are we? And they've got a different mindset. And yet we often sit there watching races and somebody's 20 minutes in front and they're still just caning it and pushing themselves really hard. What's the point there? You're still going to get the same prize purse. Top athletes think slightly different.
I do think the Sanders not being qualified changes a little bit.
Yeah, and for someone like Frodo, you might be going, I want to see how fast I really, really can go when I don't have all the distractions. Like if you're at Challenge Road or you're at Ironman Germany, the second lap of the bike, you're trying to pass Tom, Dick and Harry. The course is not optimised to be insanely fast. It's not a flat course at all.
Where did you do the fast one? Was that the
Challenge Road? And
what was
that's
it? 7:36.
7:35, I think it was.
Jeez, that's impressive, isn't it?
And it is a bit short, but it's quite a tough bike course.
Yeah.
It's quite up and down. And so they've got here, right, this is a really, really fast course. It looks like the weather's going to be great. How fast can we really go? So that may well be the way that Frodo's looking at it.
Now, watching it, live coverage?
Yep, it sounds like they're going all in on all the coverage. So check it out.
All in on all the coverage. Okay, Jumbo, let's look at this week's discussion. This week's discussion is, I'm just pulling it up here, is what do you think would be the best criteria for Ironman to use for athletes, to accept athletes into the legacy program for the Ironman World Championships in Kona? So obviously we've had a bit of discussion there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there is a better way to do the legacy program?
Exactly.
That's a really good question. Okay, Coaches
Corner.
/ high five.
Slash high five.
Okay,
Yes.
so what are you talking about?
We're talking about bunch riding, and I'm pretty sure I haven't done this. If I have, you're going to get it slammed down your throat again, because
I think we have, but that's right, we have.
yeah, we got time. I've been doing a few bunch rides with some of our juniors lately, and there's some bit adults in there. And when we go to epic camps, it's a totally different story. The athletes are usually pretty experienced, some very experienced, but across the board, the standard of group riding could be improved. And
With triathletes?
for triathletes. And why bother with this? It's firstly, it keeps them friends, because it's pretty frustrating in a group when there's lots and lots of surging. When you're just out on a general group ride, you're trying to keep it together and there's surging all over the place. Whether or not you're the strongest or the weakest, it's frustrating. If you're the weakest, it's really frustrating because you're just going to have to work super hard to keep up. Second, you ride more efficiently. And thirdly, it's a hell of a lot safer when you've got a smooth riding group.
I've got a fourth.
Yes?
With the advent of Swift and all those types of tools, people aren't riding back bunches so much.
Mm-hmm.
So the skill set around this is probably a bit lacking.
Totally. So these are a couple of things that came up the other day when I was out riding with a group. Firstly, hand position. You need to keep your hands on your brake hoods, not on tops of your bars. That's going to be really obvious for some of you, but a lot of people have their hands on top of their bars and not on their brake hoods. Second, do not ride on your aero bars in a group whenever you're in a pace line. That is just scary shit. So do not ride on your aero bars.
I remember I did that when I didn't really know Gordo. I was riding behind Gordo, and he was not happy.
Yeah, so don't do it. And never ride no hands in a group. You see it happening in the Tour de France. Those guys ride their bikes all day long. If someone rides no hands in front of me in a group, I'm just going to lose my shit. So don't do it. If you need to do that...
You haven't lost your shit in a while. When was the last time you lost your shit?
I had a good rant, have I? So if you need to take your hands off the handlebars to take a jacket off or something, just pull out from the group and go to the back. So that's point number one, hand position. Point number two, and this is by far the most important, smooth changeovers. So when you're riding along two abreast, assuming you're rotating in a clockwise or a counterclockwise direction, the change needs to be really smooth and rushed, and this normally doesn't happen. So if you're on the front, and you're the person that's sort of pulling over to the side and dropping back, you need to ease off the pressure very lightly. And you're not freewheeling, you're just easing off the pressure slightly so the person next to you can then pull across, and then the whole chain sort of just slowly rotates back. And then the second point here is if you're the athlete on the front who's moving up to the front, moving across but staying on the front, you don't increase your effort, you just move across once the person who you're riding next to has pulled back, and then you wait for the rider behind you to slowly move up. If you're that rider that's sitting in second wheel and you're moving to the front, this is absolutely critical. It's just a real slow, gradual process as let's say you're rotating in a counterclockwise, say you're in New Zealand, Australia or the UK, if you're operating in a counterclockwise direction, so you've got two on the front, and the person on the left is slowly dropping back, the person on the right is then pulling across to the left side, and slowly, no, not slowly, the person on the right is then slowly easing up. The key thing here is everything needs to be done pretty slowly. So if you're the person moving up to the front, you very slightly increase your effort, but hardly increase your speed, and you'll just naturally move up to the front. It's really, really frustrating when the person who's moving to the front puts in a big surge to get to the front, think they need to rush it, and that just sends a whole reverberation down the line. So
especially
it's all done nice and slowly.
The slingshot at the back.
Oh, it's horrible. So keep it nice and smooth, and communicate with other people. You don't need to yell at someone if they do it wrong, but give them a bit of feedback saying, just make those changes a little bit smoother here, whatever your name is. Point number 3, when you're riding a group, never ride 3 abreast. I do rant about that if anybody ever comes out riding. Never, ever, ever, ever ride 3 abreast. Number 4, avoid sudden movements. So try as hard as you can not to touch your brakes. And if you do have to touch them, it's just the tiniest touch, but try really, really hard never to touch your brakes when you're riding in a group. Number 5, if you're trying to close a gap, if a gap is opened up in front of you for whatever reason, say somebody on the front has surged to get up and there's a big gap in front of you, try to decrease that gap nice and slowly. Different story when you're bike racing, you do it nice and quickly. And final point, if you do want to change the speed of the group, say you're sitting in the air and it's a bit easy for you and it finally gets to your turn on the front, slowly ramp it up, just incrementally. So have a chat to the person next to you who you're riding with, just saying, I'm going to slowly increase the pace and just slowly up the ante rather than going from, say, 30 kilometres an hour or 20 miles an hour to 35 kilometres an hour. Just slowly ramp it up over a course of a couple of minutes. There you go.
Yep. Well, you could just be a prick. Surge away.
You could.
So in your face.
Yep. It's just, you just got to make them everything really smooth. The juniors, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They're all over the bloody show. But it's all just work in progress. But I know from Epic camps, we get really good riders come along and they're often really surgy on the front. So hopefully nobody's feeling self-conscious right now.
Okay, John, we've got an interview. It's brought to you by Profile Design. Talk about Profile Design, John.
So they've got hydration, they've got wheels, they've got storage, they've got aero bars, they've got stems and handlebars. So a lot of the front end of your bike and your wheels. So check it out, profile-design.com. And
it's cool looking stuff too, isn't it?
It is. We're talking to Michael Baker from custombikefit.com. He's based over in Australia, as you're going to hear. We're just going to talk through some stuff around aero bar positioning, different aerodynamics gains you can look for, and how you can get yourself some free speed.
Here we go. Here is Michael from, what was the name of it? custombikefit.com. Here it is right now.
Right, team, we've got a bike fitting expert on today. His name's Michael Baker from Custom Bike Fit over in Australia. So welcome along to the show, Michael.
Thank you, John.
Before we sort of get started on a few sort of tech type questions, give us a bit of background about yourself, in terms of your path to becoming a bit of a bike fitting guru and a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I started Custom Bike Fit in 2012. So I've been fitting, I'm into my 10th year now. I don't know exactly how many fits I've done, somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000. My triathlon, if you like, career, I'm just an age group, started in 1992. I did my first triathlon. I'm a 10-time Ironman finisher. I've done like 50 or 60 half Ironman distance races. And really the business is about helping other people achieve their goals. I've really done what I want to do in triathlon. I still do compete. But one of the things I love about what I do in my job is that everybody that comes into my studio or that I engage with over the internet, I have something in common with, and I'm able to help them to get closer to where they want to be.
Fantastic. What was your most memorable? I know you said you enjoy helping others these days, but what was some of your most memorable performances or experiences?
So I think Ironman, my best Ironman time is 9:29. I did that in WA in 2007. That was memorable. And some of the people that I was training with, Charlotte Paul at the time, she was the first female across the line. She won the pro female race. That was great.
Yeah.
And of late, just some of the local races. I really love going to Harvey Bay and doing the Harvey Bay 100. And I'm a minor sponsor there and out at Hell of the West in Goondiwindi. Those types of things.
Great. Awesome. Oh, by the time this comes out, it's going to be the Tour de France is actually going to be all wrapped up. So for people watching the Tour, it might be the only sort of bike racing they watch, especially for triathletes. What we've kind of noticed over the last couple of years is, obviously the time trial setups are being a bit different in terms of especially the front end around the handlebars and the aero bar stack and so on. So I thought it might be worthwhile having a chat to you about that and sort of seeing how applicable it might be for us age groupers. So for those that don't watch the Tour or don't watch any cycling, maybe explain a little bit about that evolution over the last few years from, probably a fairly standard sort of triathlon fit that a lot of us are used to what we see over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I think before we get into the differences in the sort of fit and how they've developed and the position and the setup, I think we need to put it into some context. And you might have, for example, 200 riders in the Tour, but realistically, there's probably only 30 guys that are riding hard in those individual time trials. So that's number one. So you've got the GC favourites, and then you've got your time trial specialists. Those guys are going hard in the race, in the time trial itself. The rest of them they're there to support whether it's their GC leader or whether they're there to support their sprinter. And so their hard work is the next day and the next day and the next day. And the time trial is almost it's a recovery day for them. Mm. And obviously for us triathletes, when we're going out and racing, we're trying to get the best out of ourselves each and every time we race. And we're spending a lot of time on the bike. Now, a lot of these guys that are racing in the Tour, they are spending very little time on the time trial bike and in the time trial position. Outside of those 30 guys that are riding hard because they think they have a chance of winning it, or they're trying to minimise the amount of time they're losing to their competition, they're spending very little time on the bike. So comfort isn't a primary objective. And what you'll notice with those guys in the Tour is that they're riding a frame which is quite small, and there are some UCI regulations that they have to comply with, which we don't have in triathlon. And the major three being in the time trial space, that the tip of the saddle needs to be 50 mil behind the bottom bracket. The extensions can't extend more than 800 mil past the bottom bracket. And the rise on the extensions can't be more than 100 mil from the top of the arm pad to the top of the extension. So they're really restricted in what they can do, okay? Mm-hmm. They want to be as low as possible, whether they're on the base bar or when they're in the time trial position. So you generally see a base bar that's very, very low because they're not going to be spending an awful lot of time there. Mm-hmm. And then what they'll do is they'll put a lot of spaces underneath the arm pads to bring the stack up so that they can open up their hip angle. Now, if you imagine in a time trial, so in a triathlon perspective, where we do spend a lot of time on the bike in training, and you're riding in traffic or you're riding uphill, you're riding downhill, you need to have your hand on the base bar where your brake levers are. Mm. And if that base bar is too low, you're going to get neck and shoulder pain. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's I think that's the major difference. Again, in the Tour, if you look at the Tour de France this year, there's two individual time trials. One's 27 kilometres long, the other one's 30 kilometres long. Mm. They're not on the bike for an awful lot of time. Half Ironman, 90K on the bike, you've then got to get off and run 21. And then an Ironman, 180K on the bike and get off and run a marathon. So you need to be comfortable. You can achieve the same position, through having a higher base bar and less of an arm pad stack, as you do in that Tour de France. So in the Tour de France, lower base bar, higher stack. Triathlon, higher base bar and fewer spaces for the stack. Because, again, we spend a lot of time or more time on the base bar than those guys do in their time trials. Does that make sense?
It does. So I guess in terms of, you mentioned a few things there about having the lower base bar. So that's your handlebars. You're going to be more, you're going to be lower, so you're going to be more aerodynamic in that position. In terms of the other aerodynamics around that, rather than just holding the bars, is there much difference in position when you've got that lower base bar and those really high stacks?
No, you can achieve the same position regardless. I think one of the major differences at the front with I think you'll see more in triathlon today, and certainly when I'm fitting, more people are going for this high hand position.
Yeah.
And again, there's two ways of achieving that. So we talked about, or I mentioned that in the Tour de France or in the UCI regulations, the extensions, the tip of the extensions can't be more than 10 centimetres higher, excuse me, than the arm pad or the armrest.
Right.
On my particular setup, they're almost twice that high.
Mm.
And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my hands up high so that I can reduce my frontal surface area. What these guys are tending to do now, because of those regulations, is yes, they want to have their hands up, but they're burying their face in their hands as well and getting their back angle down. Now, that's fine. In doing that, what they're also doing is they're closing off the hip angle. That's okay for a short period of time, but when you need to get off the bike and run, it's a very different scenario. So what we'll do here in a bike fit is try and make sure that the hip angle's open and that the hands are high as well, if that makes sense.
It does. So your position that you're talking about for yourself, which is not UCI legal, is that more of the praying mantis position where your hands are very high, almost in front of your face? We've seen the likes of maybe Joe Skipper, I think, has a similar sort of position to that, and a few others in the last few years in triathlon. Is that so? If people are trying to picture what you're looking like, it's that sort of praying mantis position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see this, I work predominantly with age groupers, but I work with a lot of the pro triathletes as well, local pros, and they're all trying to achieve this sort of high hands position, or the majority are. So you can either get your head very low and reduce that frontal surface area, or you bring your hands up to your head or hands up to your face. And that's a lot easier to do. But even still, there's two things. There's the bike fit, number one, and number two, how you manipulate your body. And that really comes with time and practice.
And just for people that have maybe a more traditional setup where, your forearms are, relatively horizontal or slightly leaning up, what are the things they need to think about, or any compromises in that change of angle, I guess, in terms of the load on your elbows, or what are the things that inhibit some people being able to achieve that position?
Then being able to bring their hands up.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, look, in the majority of instances, it's an issue with the bike. I don't think it's an issue with the athletes. And I think certainly when I have athletes in for bike fits and I ask them to bring their hands up and maybe we change the extensions or whatever, it's a far more comfortable position to be in, because as the hand comes up, it can relax. What you'll tend to find when the extensions are straight or very slightly up is that people will grip onto them, because they feel like they're moving forward, they're falling forward. And you almost need something that's to hold you in position. So that ski bend extension or high hand extension or high hand position actually locks you into place. It really helps if you can put the arm cup on an angle as well, because then you're supported through the elbow and through part of the forearm, and you can lock in there. And then your hands go off on a 10 or 15 degree trajectory, and they're relaxed. As you grip onto the bars, and you can do this now, if you people that are listening, just make a fist. Hold on to you. Imagine that you're holding hard onto your extensions. You can feel the tension through your arms, through the forearms, through the shoulders, through the neck. And then just release. Let the hand go, and the tension goes. Now, if you've been gripping on to your extensions for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, that tension that you create through your neck and shoulders, you're going to take that with you on the run. So you get off the bike, and you'll often see people, they have that tension in the upper part of their body, and it takes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kilometers for them to run that out. The looser you are, the more relaxed you are, the better.
I know this is going to be a really varied question, because there's so many different bike brands and so many different setups out there. But in terms of, on average, are most handlebar setups and base bar setups customizable enough that you're able to have aero bars that allow you to come up into that position? Or is it often a case you've got to purchase a new base bar and aero bar setup?
Yeah. So I'd say it's about 50-50. So there's a lot of bikes on the market where you can't. So the problems, I guess, come when you've got an integrated front end. Okay, so where an integrated front end presents challenges. Often then you have to go to aftermarket solutions. And what you're looking at there are things like high hand extensions, deep groove arm cups, using wedges. So I use a lot of profile design stuff. I have a relationship with Sync Ergonomics. I have a relationship with Revolver in the UK. So it's something you've really got to take into consideration before you buy a bike. And I do a lot of consults with people, whether it's in person or whether it's over video, as to what bike is going to work for them moving forward. And these are the sort of things that we talk about. The adjustability at the front end is really, really key. Aero bars, they play a huge position, have a huge amount of relevance in your comfort, in your aerodynamics, in being able to hold a position, in being able to travel with a bike. Now, these are something else that I talk to athletes about. How easy is it going to be to break that bike down and travel with it? And what's your aversion to risk? What are you going to do if you turn up to a race and the front end of the bike's been damaged in transit? How easy is it to get replacement parts? So integrated front ends, they do present a challenge, and people just need to be aware of what they're getting and what the limitations are.
So I guess going back to the Tour de France sort of setups, I think it sounds like in general, it's not going to be the most comfortable position. So probably, and I guess from a handling point of view, when you're if you're down on the base bar, your weight's probably going to be a lot more forward on it. And also with those really big stacks, does that affect the handling much? I mean, I suppose you're generally going straight line, so there's not a lot of handling. But does it feel quite different when you're stacked up that high?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
It's the difference really is when you put your hands down on the base bar. Whether that stack is high or whether it's not, I mean, it comes down to your bike handling skills. Right? I think, again, looking at the Tour de France, if you watch, again, those guys, the majority of those guys aren't spending a lot of time in that time trial position.
Yeah.
It's not a bike that they will ride on a regular basis because they're not there to do the time trial. They're there for other reasons. They've been employed to do for another job.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. No, I just thought that was just a generally interesting topic because people often, look at the pros and go, hey, they're doing that. Maybe I should consider integrating that in. But there's pros and cons all over the place. And for us triathletes that are typically racing from 1 hour to 17 hours, it's a slightly different story. I was keen to pick your brain a bit as well. Just people always want the silver bullet or the magic bullet in terms of things they can do to make themselves more aerodynamic or make their setup more aerodynamic purely for just around their general setup. So I noticed when I was on your website the other day that I think you've written a couple of sort of ebooks around this area as well. So if people want to get more detail, they can maybe go there. But what are a few of the sort of key things that people can buy themselves, pretty much free speed in terms of their sort of general setup?
Yeah. So look, your best bang for buck in the terms of aerodynamics is your bike fit. That's number one. The majority of the drag is created by the rider, not by the bike. So people get, I think, even in purchasing bikes, there's a lot of hysteria around having cables that are hidden. I must have my brake cable hidden. Well, your brake cable doesn't create as much drag as your body does. So being in a position that's aerodynamic and that's sustainable, that you can hold for the duration of your event, that's number one. So best bang for buck is definitely a bike fit. That's number one. If you're on a road bike, aero bars. So getting out of the road position and into a time trial position, that's going to deliver you bang for buck. That's going to deliver you a lot of benefit. Once you have the aero bars and you've got your bike fit, well, a tight-fitting triathlon suit. So you have to wear something. Make sure you're wearing something that's tight-fitting, that's really snug, that's not flapping around in the wind. After that, I'd be looking at an aero helmet. So we look at this in stages, and I often talk to beginners about this. Bike fit number 1 and your aero bars. Tri-suit number 2, you've got to wear something, so wear something that's tight fitting. Then go to your aero helmet, because that's another expense again. You might be paying $200 to $400 for an aero helmet. And last of all are the wheels. So, that would be my recommendation.
What about in terms of your bike bottle set up around the front area on your handle, on your aero bars? So some people might go for the sort of the drink bottle, like a profile drink bottle with a straw out the top, or one that sort of sits down, or you've got the ones that sort of sit in between the aero bars. So I guess from a front end point of view, is there much difference between those? And then maybe once you've done that, looking at sort of behind the seat, the best configuration around behind the seat.
Yeah. So absolutely at the front end, the first place I believe you should carry a bottle is between your aero bars. That's where your hands are, and it's where your mouth is. So whether that's a standard horizontal, just a standard drink bottle placed horizontally between the bars, or whether it's a bottle with a straw, you really should have a system at the front of the bike. Excuse me. The type of system that you use, whether you have a standard bottle or whether you have something with a straw, really depends upon the front end of the bike that you have. So if you've got, for example, I've got my extensions on an angle, it's pointless me having a system with a straw, a bottle that sits between those bars with a straw, because I can never fill it. Once I've emptied it, I can never fill it again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's on an angle. Right. If that drink system is independent of those extensions, i.e. it clips into the front end of the bike, the stem, and you'll see that a number of bikes today have a built-in hydration system at the front of the bike, or you can go to a third-party product like the